Hello, all my fans and friends out there in TV land. This is Senior Issues, etc. I'm your host, Vita Verdon, and I have an unusual type of show for you today. You're going to be interested, so hurry up, get your coffee, get your Coke, come, sit down, relax. This one's for you. Now, this attractive young lady that I have with us today has learned something through a tragic automobile accident that we all need. And what she's going to do is she's going to walk us through some of these experiences. She did a presentation of this. She does presentations in different places. This happened to her about 10 years ago. And at the Senior Center in Libertyville, Illinois, and I had people come and tell me about it, and they said, you know what, you should have something like that on your show. So following along my guidelines, I'm going to always, when you tell me I should do something, you know, I follow. That's what I've been doing for 15 years. So I did invite her, and she consented to come on the show and tell us about this experience and the things that she's learned from it. And I think that in what she's picked up at her young age, we all need, and there's lessons that we could learn. So I want you to give a warm welcome to Christine Lopez. So nice to have you on the show today.
Nice
God bless you.
Thank you.
And I know that, first of all, I know our audience, they're my friends out there. We've gotten to know each other over the years. And what they'd like to know is, they like to know, to get up close and personal. So they'd like to know a little bit about who is Christine, where was she born, you know, who is she? So if you just look right into that camera there and tell our audience a little bit about yourself, they would be delighted.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Waukegan, Illinois, so I am a local. I graduated from Waukegan High School. I went on to get my degree at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and then I received my master's degree at DePaul University. I am a single, I should say I have two brothers, so I'm the single girl in the house. But I have two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother, and I have a pet at home named Mackenzie. So hello to Mackenzie.
And you have a very comforting mother.
Yes,
too.
And I have a wonderful family at home.
Now, who do you want to give your smackaroonies? When I say smackaroonies, we give big ones here. We don't give little.
Okay.
Who would you like to give it to?
I want to give my smackaroonies to my entire family and friends out there. Mwah.
Good. And how about your pet?
My pet too, Mackenzie. He's part of my family.
So now let's go back in time to approximately 10 years ago, right?
Guess
maybe you could pick it up from there. And you were being a bridesmaid and...
Yes, so I was actually at school at the time. I was at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I was coming home. I was invited to come.
Well, at school, what were you studying at school?
Sure, so I was studying veterinary medicine.
Oh.
I was studying veterinary medicine and actually education, so teaching and learning.
Were you halfway through, just starting?
I was actually the last term, so I was in my last term there, and my friend was getting married, my good friend who actually was in the accident with me, and she asked me to be her maid of honor. So I was coming back just to visit the area and see the space so that we can take a look at it together, and she wanted to get my opinion. And while I was home that weekend, we were in a major car accident. So we were in a head-on car collision. Actually in the local area, and I was in the passenger seat at the time.
And the passenger seat is called what?
It's also referred to as the death seat, because usually when folks are in a head-on car collision, the passenger has a very low rate of survival.
Uh-huh. And so you were driving from where to where at this time?
We were driving from her hometown in Waukegan, also to Marriott, Lincolnshire.
Oh, so you were right in this area?
Yes, we were. We were right in this area.
And what happened?
So what happened was a car came across 4 lanes of traffic and hit us head on. The last thing that I remember saying to my friend was, "What is that lady doing?" And then the last thing I see was total black. I remember coming to a little bit and having a gentleman actually from out of nowhere, I don't know who he is or where he came from, but he came by the car. And
now, I know on the monitor they're showing the car right now.
Yes.
Now, that is the car after, and you were in the door that was open? You were in that
Correct.
seat?
That's the space that I was in, right, as you can see. So you can kind of see where the viewers can see this at home, where I was actually extricated from the car. If you look really closely, you can see where the headrest of the seat was actually pushed against what's called the sissy bar, as they referred to it as, in a car. And so my face was actually in between those two areas.
And so they had to extricate you from the car?
Correct.
And then they brought you to you were taken into the hospital.
Correct.
And now what were you diagnosed as having? What happened to you?
So they actually knew that, they had asked me if I was in my seatbelt, and I told them that I was. They said that they knew that immediately because I broke my right clavicle as well as my lower back. So because I broke my lower back, they wanted to take me to the hospital immediately to check if I was paralyzed. So they had thought that I was paralyzed from the waist down. And so they needed to check to do tests on me right away. I had broke my entire face, so my face has been reconstructed through the process. I broke other things, my shin, my ankle, my right big toe, to name a few, and I was bruised throughout my entire body. And approximately about a quarter of my tongue was severed. So some of my teeth had been knocked out. Some of them are held in right now by wires. But otherwise, that's part of the sundry of injuries that I had sustained.
So then you were in the hospital for how long?
Approximately 2 weeks I was in the hospital.
And you said while you were in the hospital, you had a rolling, what did you call it?
It was a bed that rocked back and forth. And so
it's a bed that I think that's shown on the monitor right now.
So folks are seeing that on the monitor. This was actually in the intensive care unit. So I was in the intensive care unit when I first went to the hospital. So they put you in a bed that rocks because they want to keep your blood flowing. And so while you're laying flat, they want to make sure that your blood is actually circulating throughout your body.
Oh, and so you were in this rocking bed for how long?
I was in the rocking bed for probably about 5 days before they transferred me into my general room.
So then in your general room, then were you put in a cast at that time?
Yeah, so they had me in a body brace right afterwards. So what I refer to it as affectionately as my turtle shell. So it was actually my little shell that I wore. It came all the way from probably my chest high down to my hips. And it had a metal stay on the side of it for my right leg. They didn't want to have me have any motion in my lower lumbar spine while I was going through the process. So it was actually kept my right leg straight during that period in time.
I think there is a shot of you in your, what did you call it, a body
brace. It's called a TLSO.
I think that they'll probably pull up a shot of you in that. No? Okay, so you were in the hospital for 2 weeks, and then when you were in the hospital for 2 weeks, I think that's the total length of time that is allowed.
Correct.
On the insurance, right?
Correct. So what they did do is they got you up right away to make sure that you were walking. So I was walking after I got transferred into my room. They had me walking, made sure that I had, physical therapists that I work with, occupational therapists to teach me how to function at home also.
So then you were still in school at that time.
Correct, I was.
And so you had to come out of school.
Correct.
And then you moved back with your mother?
Correct. I went back to my mother's house, so I needed to have a caregiver that would take care of me because I couldn't take care of myself since I was in my body brace.
I think there's a shot of you in the body brace, and that's just before you left the hospital, right?
Correct, exactly. And you can kind of see the stay on my right leg. So there's a metal stay that came off of the body brace that allowed me to keep my right leg straight, again, so that I wouldn't have movement in my lower lumbar spine because it was healing. So they wanted to limit the amount of motion that I had. I did have to have a spinal fusion, so my spine is now fused. My face, as I mentioned, has been reconstructed, so I do have metal wires in some of my teeth that are holding them into place, and then I do have plates in my face under my eyes, each of my eyes.
Did they do your body first and then your the plastic surgery?
I actually went through 9 hours of surgery. So they started with my back and then flipped me over on the exam table or the operating table and then finished with my face. Well,
what we're going to do is we're going to find out what the next stage of your recuperation does. But first of all, I'm going to go into Vita's Pearls of Wisdom at this time. And so now we're filming this show on February 2nd, 2015, a Monday, and what we had here in the northwest suburban area, Libertyville, which is 30 miles northwest of the Chicago area, and what was recorded at O'Hara Airport was 19 and a half feet of snow. So that we're filming today, this is a miracle in itself that we got here to the studio and that we have a crew here at the studio operating. So this is the big blizzard of 2015. And you know, I'm always looking out for you out there that in this weather, you know, I take with me a cane all the time, and I told you can buy these portable canes very cheap at Walgreens or any medical supply house. And on the canes, I've showed you more than once that there's a little attachment you can put with it, and it has spikes in it that if there's ice or snow, you can let it go down. Now, be really careful in your house if you have any kind of space heaters, because first of all, you don't need to start a fire in your house, and you don't need to trip over anything. And I've mentioned it to you more than once that if you have any loose rugs around your house, be very careful with those loose rugs because you don't want to have your foot go underneath it. And it's best to have that checked out and don't have a lot of papers hanging around your house. Now, I tell you this periodically when you're taking your vitamins. When you take your vitamins, please take your vitamins with a little bit of food so you can get the full benefit of it. If you don't take them, it's like taking empty vitamins. And the only thing that you're giving vitamins to is your toilet, because they're just going to run right through you. So, you know, be careful on that. Another tip I have for you is take all your medications to your doctor, your internist, your main physician, the next time you go, and lay it right on the doctor's and say, not what can I increase, what can I cut down on? Because in our lives as seniors, we need to learn how to take less medicine, not more medicine, and we need to learn how to live on less medicine and keep ourselves, because remember, we're the first generation that has lived as long as we're living because of technology, because of all the advancements in medicine. So we have to learn how to stay healthy and take care of ourselves in living this long. Now, with each one of us, you know, in this weather, we're all tempted to do things like when we were 20 years old. But you know what? You got to change. And you have to change, like for us to come here to the show today, and I live in a senior building, and our cars were just included. It was like an igloo. You couldn't even see the cars. And you know, at our age, we could have heart attack. So you know, we were smart. We used these little gray cells up here. We paid somebody to do it, you know, and it doesn't hurt. Now we're going to get back to Christine, and where we're at is she's just coming out of the hospital. Now we're taking her from the hospital into being taken care of at home. Now, what was that like, being transferred?
So it actually was I think the biggest thing was getting used to the independence level. I was very independent, and I think something that I probably share with many of the viewers is the importance for independency for myself. I was reliant on everybody for everything, and it was new to me. It was something that I was not used to, and a big challenge for me to kind of overcome. But one of the things that I learned through that process is when people ask you if they can help allow them to help you, because it's not just you that they're helping, it's themselves too. Folks need to have a purpose and a feeling for that. And I think it's important to share that with folks. It makes the pathway so much easier when you are allowed to rely on other people. And so for myself, that's one big lesson that I learned. And one of the things that I'm grateful for as I move through the process.
Well, the word, and we're going to go into the meaning of the word that is so impressed that you learned during this process, is gratitude.
Yes.
And so we're not talking about just a physical gratitude.
Correct.
We're talking about a spiritual.
Yes.
We're talking about an emotional.
Correct.
We're talking about a mental. And so we're talking about different areas of our humanity.
Correct.
Do you feel like this experience has benefited you?
Most definitely. There's something that I share with people when I speak with them, and that I tell them that the accident was one of the best things that have ever happened to me. And a lot of folks cannot conceptualize that or understand that. And what I mean when I say that is, before the accident, I was a different person than I am now here today. I'm a stronger person. I hear about people like Christopher Reeve, who shared his story about how he made it through the experience he had when he had broken his neck in the accident that he had had. But for me, really that speaks volumes to where you come as you move through a process. The hardest thing for me was probably not necessarily the physical piece. The physical piece was hard to get through, the broken bones and walking again and learning how to re-walk. The challenging part for me was really mourning myself, who I was before, and embracing who I was going to become. I think
that's interesting that you use that word, because it's usually used in a death process.
Correct.
But this is a death of a certain aspect of you.
Correct. This is a death of myself as a whole, meaning my mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual individual as a whole. And so working your way through that process is one where you learn. I think a lot of times all of us as individuals, we hold on to the past because we know what it is and we're comfortable with it. But if we're holding on like this, we can't receive. So we have to be able to release that grip and open our hand to be open to those new experiences and what we learn from them.
Now I want to ask you something. At this time, were you a very much athletic person?
I was very athletic. I played softball at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I was a Big Ten college athlete. I ran competitively. So for me, I identified as an athlete. I didn't know anything different. So when that was taken away from me, that was a huge loss. And that was an emotional, mental loss for myself. I had to find a different way to feel again like an athlete.
And so how did you go about that?
I actually started doing yoga. I found yoga to be of assistance to myself. I now am back, I'm recovered, I run again. I don't run as fast as I used to, but I still run. I do triathlons and duathlons, which I would have never fathomed even doing back then. So I'm very blessed to be able to have those experiences. But yoga really helped me. Running was always a meditation for me back when I was in college. It helped me get clarity in my mind. But I found yoga to do that for me in the meantime.
Now, you were a believer beforehand.
Yes.
And now, did this deepen your belief?
My faith?
In a higher being?
Yes, ma'am, it sure did. It definitely did.
Can you give me some example?
I think one of the things that you see as you go through this process is really some of the worst in people and some of the best in people. And I mean that in a bunch of different ways. There's a legal part of this that I went through, which was very challenging to kind of maneuver and make sure I stayed positive through. But I think those little things that you see every day, I had family members and friends bringing me soup because my mouth was wired shut. Every day people would bring me soup so that I could eat. And that
if
nourishment.
your mouth was wired shut, did they have a space for a straw or something?
Yes, so I was able to suck through a straw, which was very challenging at times. So you didn't have all the meals you could have before, but
well,
at
how
least
many
you could still
months
eat.
did you have to go on a liquid diet then?
That was 3 months. So my mouth was wired shut for 3 months, and I was in my body brace for 4 months.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yes.
So what did how long did the total recovery take?
I say that I'm still recovering every day. I think I have chronic pain in my lower back, so it's something that I learned to take care of. Yoga, again, helps me immensely. Really respecting my limitations and understanding those things. I think I'm a little bit more rapid at identifying those now and making sure I handle those appropriately. So those are some of the things that I found to be helpful.
Well, after 10 years, you have come out with this giving presentations on gratitude.
Yes.
Now, did this start building up in you right away? Or did it all of a sudden hit you one day? How did this come? Can you go into a little bit of depth on that?
Sure. So I think one of the pieces to that was I remember seeing a video on Joe Theismann, and a lot of folks probably, that your viewers probably remember the Joe Theismann incident where he was playing football and running, and his leg had been broken on national television. And one of the things I remember him saying was exactly something that I say, is he had to mourn his own self in order to become the new person that he was going to be. And I see that repetitively throughout athletics, but I see that in life in general. So I see people going through struggles, whether it's a physical struggle, whether it's a mental, emotional struggle, that they work through those processes and they have a support system in place to do that so that they can kind of move to the next side. There's a lot that goes through it, the mental, emotional you and I talked about. There is depression that comes sometimes with that, with a loss. There's natural tendency to have depression. My family, my mom would not allow me to be in the house for too long because she wanted me to be outside. She wanted me to experience the world and still be a part of that. So she took me out in a wheelchair and we went and walked the malls. So it at least engaged you with your surroundings and others. And
how did you go through this emotionally?
Emotionally, I found myself, prayer is one of the things, obviously. Prayer is something that I look to, my faith, my family, just making sure I stayed positive. I think resiliency is something that's very important through the process, being able to stay emotionally attuned, make sure you're acknowledging the fact that you're working through your emotions. Christopher Reeve talks about in his book that one of the things he did for himself, and it was helpful to me when I went through the process, is allowing yourself time every day to feel sorry for yourself. And he said, and time it. Give a beginning and give an end, and then that's it, and move on with the rest of your day. And I think of all the things,
linger.
Correct. So I think of all the things he was able to accomplish in the time that he was here, and he still is accomplishing with his foundation. So.
Now, were you able to continue your education?
Yes. So while I have not received my Doctor of Veterinary Medicine yet, I did receive my master's degree in education, teaching and learning, and so I utilize that every day in my current job.
Now, this attitude of gratitude,
yes.
I'm still drumming on that. Did you gain a lot of attitude from the people that were helping you as caregivers?
Most definitely. I think one of the things that you see, again, like I said, is probably you see some of the worst in people, but you see so much of the best in people. Just how giving people are and how grateful you are in becoming every day. There were so many things that were broken in me physically, and making it through to the other side of that was one where those folks became so important. My friends, my family, you know, my mother would wash my hair for me. These are all things that might seem small in nature.
You took for granted.
Right, things that I think a lot of folks take for granted every day, and they're things that when it comes to it, you realize what's very important in your life.
Now, I know that you categorized yourself before this happened as a very independent person.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this transition from independence to you're a totally dependent person.
Yes.
That's quite a leap. That's a big transition.
Yes.
How did you get through that? Did you read a lot of books on
Right. So Mr. Covey talks about that too, the interdependency. And I think when you talk about interdependency, interdependency can't happen with just one person. So that synergy that happens between everybody to get somebody healthy again, to get people well again, is something that we might not think of because it's a microcosm, but it's something that is so huge. You can't go forward. The greatest levels of success we have in our culture are those where we have interdependency. If I work by myself, I can only get so much done. If I work as a group or with others, there's so much more we can achieve. And so that interdependency is something that I learned very rapidly, that it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to rely on other people, and it's part of the process.
Well, I know you started out to be like an animal doctor.
Yes.
Right? And now this has thrust you into a different direction.
Correct.
And you're starting to give presentations.
Yes.
on this gratitude that this happened to you. Now, how do you see yourself, like in 5 years? What are your goals? Have your goals changed?
Actually, one of the things that I have been working on, and my mother keeps telling me I need to finish it, is a book. So I've been working on a book to talk about my experience, to share that with people. One of the other things I talk about a lot to folks is really the medical part of this, making sure that you're an advocate for yourself. There's so many times where we're in the hospital that something we think might not seem right, then you need to advocate for that for yourself and ask, or have your family members assist you in that process.
I know you touched a little bit on the legal aspects of it, and that had to be a nightmare because your medical bills had to be like $1 zillion.
Correct.
With all the different procedures that you had done.
Correct. So probably from the, I would say from the time the car accident happened to the first hospital, not even going to the second hospital where the long-term happened, that was about $180,000. In the car accident that I was in, it's something that a lot of people experience, is the person was uninsured. And
uninsured.
So, right, so that brought a whole different piece to the process. And so that's something that I talk about too, is the reform that I think needs to happen in our legal system to ensure that folks, when you're in that situation, the last thing you want to be dealing with is that legal piece. It's really, you should be focusing on your physical health, and finding ways to ensure that we do that for people as they move through that process, I think is important.
Well, I know you probably reached people out there, and maybe you'll give your name and your, not a website, give your email.
Correct.
So give them your email.
Sure.
Right now.
So my email address is pez, P-E-Z-C, @sbcglobal.net.
Yeah, so if anybody out there wants to contact her or ask any questions or where they should go for help, because you had to learn to have a lot of advocates around you, right?
Most definitely, yes.
You learned to be your own advocate.
Correct, most definitely on that too.
That is really strong. Now, you have come through this, and you've come through the other side, and as you say, it's a daily process of healing. But at the point that you are, maybe you could just look into that camera and say what the benefits that you've gotten out of it from your heart, during this. It's a 10-year process.
Yes, most definitely. So I would say that probably one of the greatest things that I've learned is really resiliency. The reliance and interreliance on individuals is something that I'm very grateful for. And also just the piece that no matter how challenging a situation might be, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and to make sure that you're keeping hope and be kind to other people, because you never know what their stories are, what they're going through.
Well, that's quite a story that you have, and I'm sure this is not the end of it. This is the beginning of something very new, and we wish all the best to you, and thank you for coming on and sharing that with us, because we appreciate and we know that all of us do need gratitude. You know what time it is now? When you out there come to the end of your rope, you tie a knot and you hang on. You know why? Because the best is yet to come, and what we want you all to do this week is catch the spirit. God bless you. We love you.